suspect that the long-term demand for general-purpose humanoid robots is in excess of 20 billion units. So we're ramping up production in our US factory, as well as building the mega factory in China that should roughly double our output, maybe triple potentially. In conclusion, we're super excited about the progress across the board. I recommend anyone who doesn't believe that Tesla will solve vehicle autonomy should not hold Tesla stock. They should sell their Tesla stock. If you believe Tesla will solve autonomy, you should buy Tesla stock. Enabling the fleet to operate like a giant autonomous fleet, and it takes the valuation, I think, to some pretty crazy number. ARK Invest thinks on the order of $5 trillion. I think they're probably not wrong. And long-term Optimus, I think, achieves a valuation several times that number. So large adoption acceleration in EVs, and then a bit of a hangover as others struggle to make compelling EVs. So there have been quite a few competing electric vehicles that have entered the market, and mostly they have not done well, but they have discounted their EV price substantially, which has made it but more difficult for Tesla. But we don't see this as a long-term issue, but really as fairly short-term. And we still obviously firmly believe that EVs are best for customers and that the world is headed for a fully electrified transport, not just of cars, but also of aircraft and boats. Despite many challenges, the Tesla team did a great job executing, and we did achieve record quarterly revenues. Energy storage deployments reached an all-time high in Q2, leading to record profits for the energy business. And we're investing in many future projects, including AI training and inference, and a great deal of infrastructure to support future products. We won't get too much into the product roadmap here because that is reserved for product announcement events, but we are on track to deliver a more affordable model in the first half of next year. Really, by far, the biggest differentiator for Tesla is autonomy. In addition to that, we have scale economies, and we're the most efficient electric vehicle producer in the world. While others are pursuing different parts of the AI robotics stack, we are pursuing all of them. This allows for better cost control, more scale, quicker time to market, and a superior product, applying not just to autonomous humanoid robots like Optimus. Regarding full self-driving and Robotaxi, we've made a lot of progress with full self-driving in Q2. And with version 12.5 beginning rollout, we think customers will experience a step change improvement in how well supervised full self-driving works. Version 12.5 has 5 times the parameters of 12.4 and will finally merge the highway and city stacks. So the highway stack is still, at this point, pretty old. So often the issues people encounter are on the highway, but with 12.5, we finally merged the 2 stacks. I still find that most people actually don't know how good the system is. And I would encourage anyone to understand the system better to simply try it out and let the car drive you around. One of the things we're going to be doing just to make sure people actually understand the capabilities of the car is when delivering a new car and when picking up a car for service, to just show people how to use it and just drive them around the block. Once people use it at all, they tend to continue using it. So it's very compelling. And this, I think, will be a massive demand driver. Even unsupervised full self-driving will be a massive demand driver. And as we increase the miles between intervention, it will transition from supervised full self-driving to unsupervised full self-driving, and we can unlock massive potential in the fleet. We postponed the sort of Robotaxi or the product unveil by a couple months where it's shifted to 10/10 to October. And this is because I wanted to make some important changes that I think would improve the vehicle, the Robotaxi, the main thing that we're going to show. And we're also going to show off a couple of other things. So moving it back a few months allowed us to improve the Robotaxi as well as add in a couple other things for the product unveil. We're also nearing completion of the south expansion of Texas, which will house our largest training cluster to date. This will be an incremental 50,000 H100s plus 20,000 of our hardware 4 or AI5 Tesla AI computer. With Optimus, Optimus is already performing tasks in our factory, and we expect to have Optimus production version 1 in limited production starting early next year. This will be for Tesla consumption. It's just better for us to iron out the issues ourselves. But we expect to have several thousand Optimus robots produced and doing useful things by the end of next year in the Tesla factories. And then in 2026, ramping up production quite a bit. And at that point, we'll be providing Optimus robots to outside customers. That'll be production version 2 of Optimus. For the energy business, this is growing faster than anything else. This is we are really demand constrained rather than production constrained. So we're ramping up production in our US factory, as well as building a mega factory in China that should roughly double our output, maybe more than double, maybe triple potentially. In conclusion, we're super excited about the progress across the board. We're changing the energy system, how people move around, how people approach the economy. The undertaking is massive, but I think the future is incredibly bright. I really just can't emphasize just the importance of autonomy for the vehicle side and for Optimus. Although the numbers sound crazy, I think Tesla producing at volume with unsupervised FSD, essentially enabling the fleet to operate like a giant autonomous fleet, and it takes the valuation, I think, to some pretty crazy number. ARK Invest thinks on the order of $5 trillion. I think they're probably not wrong. And long-term Optimus enabling the fleet to operate like a giant autonomous fleet, and it takes the valuation, I think, to some pretty crazy number. ARK Invest thinks on the order of $5 trillion. I think they're probably not wrong. And long-term Optimus, I think, achieves a valuation several times that number. When can we do unsupervised full self-driving? It's difficult. My predictions on this have been overly optimistic in the past. The current trend, it seems as though we should get miles between interventions to be high enough that it should be far enough in excess of humans that you could do unsupervised possibly by the end of this year. I would be shocked if we cannot do it next year. So next year seems highly probable to me based on point simply plus the points of the curve of miles between intervention. That trend exceeds human for sure next year. So I'm quite concerned about actually being able to get state-of-the-art NVIDIA GPUs when we want them. And I think this therefore requires that we put a lot more effort on Dojo in order to ensure that we've got the training capability that we need. We are going to double down on Dojo, and we do see a path to being competitive with NVIDIA with Dojo. And I think we kind of have no choice because the demand for NVIDIA is so high, and it's obviously their obligation essentially to raise the price of GPUs to whatever the market will bear, which is very high. I think we've really got to make Dojo work, and we will. Optimus is intended to be a generalized humanoid robot with a lot of intelligence. So it's like saying what kind of accessories would we offer with a human. It's really intended to be able to be backwards compatible with human tasks. So it would use any accessories that a human would use. Trump has said that there can be tariffs on vehicles produced in Mexico. So it doesn't make sense to invest a lot in Mexico if that is going to be the case. So we need to see where things play out politically. However, we are increasing capacity at our existing factories quite significant. And I should say that the cyber taxi or Robotaxi will be produced here at our headquarters at Giga, Texas.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, as will Optimus towards the end of next year for Optimus production version 2, the high volume version of Optimus will also be produced here in Texas. I think that there are opportunities to integrate Grok into Tesla software. Yes. So it was just, this big XA of a Tesla. There was no, the Tesla data centers were full. There was no place to actually put them. We've been running 24/7 to complete the south extension on the Tesla Gigafactory here in Texas. That south extension is what will house the 5400s. And we're beginning to move the H100 server racks into place there. But we needed that to be complete physically. You can't order GPUs and turn them on you need a data center. It's not possible. So I want to be clear that was in Tesla's interest, not contrary to Tesla's interest. Does Tesla no good to have GPUs that can't turn on? The split second that south extension is able to take GPUs, which is really just this week, we are moving GPUs in there and we'll bring them online. With regard to XAI, they only want to work on AGI. So what I was finding was that when trying to recruit people to Tesla, they were only interested in working on AGI, not Tesla specific problems, and they want to do a startup. So it was a case of either they go to a startup and I'm involved, or they do a startup and I'm not involved. Those are the two choices. This wasn't they would come to Tesla. They were not going to come to Tesla under any circumstances. Yeah, 1 billion people on Earth, so that's 8 billion right there. Then you've got all of the industrial uses, which is probably at least as much, if not way more. So I suspect that the long-term demand for general-purpose humanoid robots is in excess of 20 billion units. And Tesla has the most advanced humanoid robot in the world, and is also very good at manufacturing, which these other companies are not. And we've got a lot of experience the most experience. We're the world leaders in real-world AI. So we have all of the ingredients. I think we're unique in having all of the ingredients necessary. Large-scale, high-utility, generalized humanoid robots. That's why my rough estimate long-term is in accordance with the ARK Invest analysis of market cap of on the order of $5 trillion for, maybe more, for autonomous transport. And it's several times that number for general purpose humanoid robots. I mean, at that point, I'm not sure what money even means, but in the benign AI scenario, we're headed for an age of abundance, where there is no shortage of goods and services. Anyone can have pretty much anything they want. It's a very wild future we're headed for.
The distributed compute.
Yeah, distributed compute. That seems like a pretty obvious thing to do. I think where the distributed compute becomes interesting is with next generation Tesla AI chip, which is Hardware 5, which is from the standpoint of inference capability comparable to a B200, and we're aiming to have in production at the end of next year and scale production in 26. So it just seems even if you've got autonomous vehicles that are operating for 50 or 60 hours a week, there's 168 hours in a week. So you have somewhere above, I think, 100 neural net computing. But I think we need a better word than GPU, because GPU means graphics processing. So there's 100 hours plus per week of AI inference compute from the fleet, from the vehicles, and probably some percentage from the humanoid robots, that it would make sense to do distributed inference. And if there's a fleet of, at some point, 100 million vehicles with AI 5 and beyond, because you have AI 6 and 7 and whatnot, and there may be billions of humanoid robots, that is just a staggering amount of inference compute that could be used for general purpose computing. It doesn't have to be used for the humanoid robot or for the car. So I think, that's a pretty obvious thing to say. It's more useful than having to do nothing with that. You need a gateway computer too. So it's really a gateway computer with the cellular and Wi-Fi, the Tesla computer, and 7 cameras, or enough cameras to get a 360-degree view. But this will, given the speed at which the auto industry moves, it would be several years before you would see this. Our solution is a generalized solution, what everybody else has. If you see it like Waymo and whatnot, they're a very localized solution that requires high density mapping. It's quite fragile. Their ability to expand rapidly is limited. Our solution is a general solution that works anywhere. It would even work on a different Earth. So if you rendered a new Earth, it would work on a new Earth. So there's capability. I think in our experience, once we demonstrate that something is safe enough or significantly safer than human, we find that regulators are supportive of deployment of that capability. It's difficult to argue with if you've got billions of miles that show that in the future unsupervised FSD is safer than human. What regulator could really stand in the way of that? They're morally obligated to approve. So I don't think regulatory approval will be a limiting factor. I should also say that the self-driving capabilities that are deployed outside of North America are far behind that in North America. So with the 12.5 and maybe it's 12.6, but pretty soon we will ask for regulatory approval of the Tesla supervised FSD in Europe, China, and other countries. And I think we're likely to receive that before the end of the year.
Thank you.
Which will be a helpful demand driver in those regions, obviously.
Thank you.
GM cancels it because GM can't make it work, not because of regulators. They're blaming regulators. That's misleading of them to do, because Waymo is doing just fine in those markets. So it's just that their technology is not up to par. But there's the sheer number of times I've talked with smart people who live in New York or maybe downtown Boston and don't ever drive, and then are asking me about FSD. And I'm like, you can just get a car and try it. And if you're not doing that, you have no idea what's going on. Now, this would just be the Tesla network. You just literally open the Tesla app and summon a car, and we send a car to pick you up and take you somewhere. And we'll have a fleet that's, on the order of 7 million that are capable of autonomy soon. In the years to come, it'll be over 10 million, then over 20 million. This is an immense scale. And the car is able to operate 24/7, unlike the human driver. The capability to get this basically instant scale with a software. And now this is for a customer-owned fleet. So you can think of that as being a bit like Airbnb. You can choose to allow your car to be used by the fleet or cancel that and bring it back. It can be used by the fleet all the time. It can be used by the fleet some of the time. And then Tesla would share in the revenue with the customer. But you can think of the giant fleet of Tesla vehicles as like the giant sort of Airbnb equivalent fleet. Airbnb on wheels. And in addition, we would make some number of cars for Tesla that would just be owned by Tesla and be added to the fleet. I guess that would be a bit more like Uber, but this would all be the Tesla network. And there's an important clause we've put in every Tesla purchase, which is that the Tesla vehicles can only be used in the Tesla fleet. They cannot be used by a third party for autonomy. the entire Tesla fleet basically becomes active. This is obviously, maybe there's some number of people who don't want their car to earn money, but I think most people will. Yeah, we find customers that they can put together a hodgepodge solution, and then sometimes they'll pick that solution, and then that doesn't work. Yeah, I think people don't understand just how much demand there will be for grid storage. They really just, like, the people, I think, are underestimating this demand by probably orders of magnitude. So that the actual energy, total energy output of, say, the US grid is, if the power plants can operate at steady state, is at least 2 to 3 times the amount of energy it currently produces, because there are huge gaps. There's a huge difference in from peak to trough in terms of energy or power generation. In order for a grid to not have blackouts, it must be able to support the load at the worst minute of the worst day of the year, the coldest or hottest day, which means that for the rest of the time, for the rest of the year, it's got massive excess power generation capability, but it has no way to store that energy. Once you add battery packs, you can now run the power plants at steady state. Steady state means that basically any given grid anywhere in the world can produce, in terms of cumulative energy in the course of a year, at least twice what it is currently producing. In some cases, maybe twice.
All right, thank you.
It's a very profound thing. I mean, I guess that there would be like some impact, but I think it would be devastating for our competitors, and it would hurt Tesla slightly. But long term, probably actually helps Tesla, would be my guess. Yeah. But I've said this before in these calls. The value of Tesla overwhelmingly is autonomy. These other things are in the noise relative to autonomy. So I recommend anyone who doesn't believe that Tesla will solve vehicle autonomy should not hold Tesla stock. They should sell their Tesla stock. If you believe Tesla will solve autonomy, you should buy Tesla stock. And all these other questions are in the noise.